Works, Transportation Public Works Committee, this date February 2nd, 2016. I'm Councilmember Rake. I'll be chairing the committee. I'm joined by colleagues Councilmember Yang, Glidden, Gordon, Palmisano, and Bender. We're a full complement of committee and continue with our business today. We have a series of public hearings and 2 discussion items. I'll note that the 13th item on discussion is really not for full presentation, but we can answer questions. It's a sequencing of events. One item needed to be approved before the other could be approved, and so that's why that's there. But I'll go through the consent items. Any committee member can pull any item for further conversation. Beginning with the first item, item 6 on the agenda, Blaisdell Avenue South reconfiguration. And that'll go from 31st Street West to 40th Street West. And it's a variance request from MnDOT for state aid operation rules for the reconfiguration of Blaisdell for the purposes of making sure that alignment can be multimodal. Item 7 is a grant acceptance from Hennepin County for sidewalk recycling containers. That'll be referred to Ways and Means. Contract amendment, item 8 is a contract amendment with Chemstone Products Company for ready mix concrete. Item 9 is a contract amendment for engineering and construction innovations for storm tunnel repairs. Item 10 is the Northern States Power Excel Engineering Authority to increase rates for electrical services. Details are in your packet. Item 11 is the bid for hauling and disposal of agricultural liming materials for $1,500,000 for that service. Those are the items on consent. Is anyone wish to pull in for further conversation? Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a quick question on item number 6.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I had some preliminary conversations with staff about potentially extending this project to 29th Street. So would this action preclude that extension? And if so, maybe we would want to include those other blocks in this just in case we end up being able to implement that part. So I think it's Mr. Blinsky that, or maybe Mr.
Mr. Chair, Council Member, we'll have Simon Blinsky answer that question for you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Simon Blinsky with Transportation Planning and Programming, Public Works. Chair Reich and Councilmember Bender. This action today to request permission to apply for a variance on Blaisdell does not preclude protected bike lane further to the north on Blaisdell. This is only in regards to configuration where we're proposing to go down to 1 lane on a one-way street. The configuration that we've explored north of 31st does not fall into that category. So.
Thank you. Any other items for further discussion or clarification? Seeing none, I will move all consent items as stated. All in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. Those items carry. And we can now go to our public hearing section, starting with item 1, which is a public hearing regarding the 54th Street West, Penn Avenue South, Lindale South reconstruction project. Good morning, Mr. Kaki.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Jeff Handelin from our Transportation Engineering Design Division will be making this presentation, and I think he'll actually be making the presentation for the next 3 public hearings.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Handelin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jeff Handeland. I'm a principal professional engineer in the Transportation Engineering and Design Division of Public Works. 54th Street West is scheduled for reconstruction between Penn Avenue South and Lindale Avenue South in 2016 and 2017. Public Works designed the project considering input, including public meetings held on October 7th and December 2nd, 2014. Council approved the project layout on January 30th, 2015. The detailed design is now complete, and Public Works held another public meeting last Wednesday to provide information about the assessments method and process. We plan to hold a 4th public meeting before the start of construction this spring to give residents and businesses an idea of what to expect during construction. Today, Public Works is asking City Council to pass resolutions ordering the work to proceed, adopting the special assessments, authorizing sale of the assessment bonds, and authorizing abandonment and removal of any areaways in conflict with the project. there are no known areaways on this project. I'll stay nearby in case there are any questions.
Thank you. Any questions per the presentation? Seeing none, I will then open the public hearing, and this is the public hearing for 50th Street West as described by staff. I have one person signed in, Mr. Wes Anderson. If you can please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Wes Anderson. I am the board chair of City Church. We are located right at the midpoint of the 54th Street reconstruction project. Thank you for your work on this project, and Jeff and Suzette. We've answered a lot of our good questions and for keeping the community well informed during this process. We are here today to object to an assessment which totals just over $131,000. We've learned that the amount represents 22% of the total project assessment. And this is largely due to a formula which reflects the fact that we have a very deep lot. However, most of our lot is unbuildable. The property sat vacant for 2 years, then Pulte Homes canceled development plans when they learned what many local residents already knew, that up until about the 1950s, it used to be a swamp with very poor soil. In its place today, there is some parking, a large playground we allow the neighbors to use, and even a tomato garden that is used by a neighborhood fundraising group. We do want to be good neighbors. So please let me highlight 3 financial considerations that ironically get to about the same number. First, the city states that the average non-residential assessment for a project like this is rounded up about $20,000. Second, the next highest non-residential assessment to a property owner along 54th Street will be just over $20,000. Finally, our street frontage is about 3% of the total. 3.125% times the total assessment rounded up is $20,000. Again, this compares with an assessment to us of $131,700. We're also losing our street parking on this on the south side. Our building has a main level entrance and a lower level. We don't have an elevator. So we do have a lot of elderly and families with young kids that park on that south side. Now they'll be forced to park on the north side and cross a busy street. In closing, our church's vision is to seek the peace and the welfare of the city. I believe we maintain a strong reputation with the community in doing so. Thus, we kindly ask for parity today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else signed in? Seeing none, anyone else wish to address the committee regarding this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Director Kotke or Mr. Handlin. I want to also assert, in terms of City Church, that the resurfacing project in Kenny neighborhood this year will affect all 3 other corners of their lot. I know that this reconstruction project won't start to be assessed until 2017. Their act here preserves their right to appeal in the future. But I'm curious, are we willing to account for irregularities like this? This is a very irregular type of parcel. It's not a regular configuration given what's on the block. So I'm just wanted to ask staff if there's anything we can do.
Mr. Hanlon.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Palmisano, I agree that City Church's objection has been formally noted, so they preserve their right to appeal if they choose to do so. Public Works would be happy to review their parcels for any irregularities in case there was anything that irregular that affected the assessment method or calculation.
Thank you. So I think the message here is that the city's trying to do the right thing, and we can maybe get that worked out with City Church in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further conversation or clarifications? Seeing none, I will move the item before us as described by staff in the presentation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. On to the second public hearing, which is the 26th Avenue North reconstruction project between West Broadway to Lyndale Avenue North and 2nd Street North to the Mississippi River. And Mr. Hanlon will be covering this as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Reich, members of the committee. Jeff Handeland again with Transportation Engineering Design. 26th Avenue North was between Theodore Worth Parkway and Lyndale, and between Lyndale and 2nd Street was renovated in 2015 with some minor work remaining for 2016. 26th Avenue North, shown in red on the location map, between Broadway and Lyndale Avenue and between 2nd Street North and the Mississippi River, is scheduled for reconstruction in 2016 and 2017. Public Works designed the project considering input from preliminary plans developed by the Jordan and Hawthorne neighborhoods and input from public meetings held in 2014. Public Works also reached out specifically to businesses and in one case added a parking bay to the north side of the street to accommodate requests of businesses between Washington Avenue and 2nd Street. City Council approved the project layout on January 30th, 2015, and the detailed design is now complete. Public Works held another public meeting last Monday to provide information about the special assessments method and process, and we plan to hold a 4th meeting for this project as well prior to the start of construction to give residents and businesses an idea of what to expect during construction. We'll also be working specifically with the industrial businesses at the east end of the project prior to and during construction to make sure that we can impact their business operations as little as possible while we complete the construction of the street. Today, Public Works is asking City Council to pass resolutions ordering the work to proceed, adopting the special assessments, authorizing sale of the assessment bonds, and authorizing abandonment and removal of any areaways in conflict with the project. There are no known areaways on 26th Avenue North. I'll stay nearby in case there are any questions.
Are there any questions per the staff presentation? Seeing none, with that I will open the public hearing. It's a public hearing regarding the 26th Avenue North reconstruction project. I do have people signed in and I will call it in order. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, beginning with Mark Masika.
Thank you. My name is Mark Masika. I'm an attorney in private practice. My address is 4517 Abbott Avenue North in Robbinsdale. First of all, and I come as a member of St. Anne St. Josephian Parish, and as such, I've been asked to appear and as attorney for St. Anne St. Josephian Parish, which is a property owner along the at Russell and between Russell and Queen on 26 on the north side, and also on behalf of Queen Anne Communities, which is a nonprofit which owns the new parking lot that was built for St. Anne St. Josephian Church, and that's between Penn Avenue North and Queen Avenue North on the south side of 26th. St. Anne St. Josephian Parish special assessments approximately $85,000. The Queen Anne Community special assessments approximately $15,000. So combined, they're just a little under 5%, I believe, of the budget. I'd like to just first apologize because my organizations, my clients did not participate in the community sessions. And so they are kind of Johnny-come-lately here. And that we apologize for that. There is a kind of a language issue with the people at St. Josephian as far as the administration, and I was just made aware of this recently. And I, having been a long time participant in the neighborhood process in Minneapolis, I do resent when people come forward at the last minute and make objections when the process has been ongoing. And actually this process has been going since I was involved with the Northside Residents Redevelopment Council some time ago. I did put a call into the city engineer. We have concerns about the layout, and I don't know if this is the proper time. It should have the objection should have been made previously. As I went over the overlay on the website, it looked like they had filled in the entrance to 26th Avenue North, but that's shared between Russell and CVS Pharmacy, which dead ends. It looks like they filled that in with boulevard and trees. And obviously, I don't think they're going to do that because that would we create chaos on many levels, including emergency access to New Millennium School, which is currently there, but they will be moving out at the end of this school year. But whatever school might be leasing the school space, also it would create some chaos potentially for church services and funeral services and so forth. So we have some objections as far as the church is concerned to the layout, and maybe we can have our concerns allayed by talking to the city public works department. I did put a call in last week and I didn't get a call back, but primarily I'm just putting the objection on the record to preserve our rights. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you for that presentation. And what I'll do is we have several people who wish to approach us, and we'll take all of their questions at the end with staff responding. Thank you. Next, we have Diane Howard. If you can come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. I'm Diane Howard, and I'm here on behalf of LRH Investment as well as Willman Trucking. LRH Investment is located at 62 26th Avenue North. It is the owner entity of that property. Willman Trucking is the tenant that is renting that whole space as a trucking company. So I'm here on behalf of both entities to oppose, well, I should back up. We do not oppose the 26th Avenue project per se, as far as the bike and pedestrian paths going west to Theo Worth. We are opposed to the section from Mississippi River to 2nd Street due to a variety of reasons. One, mainly that it's an incompatible use of the land. This is zoned by the city as industrial I-3, and it is, quite frankly, unsafe for having bicyclists and pedestrians in that area. Even though they have designed it as an off-road pathway, you've got entrances for all the businesses in that area with heavy-duty trucks, heavy loads, and this is clearly a hazard for both and for the public as well as the companies and their trucks, the vehicles. Moreover, there is already an established route that can be used by the pedestrians and bicyclists from the river going across west on 22nd Avenue and then coming north on 2nd to head west on 26th from that juncture from 2nd and 26th. That is already established and is called the Mississippi River Trail, and it's already been sanctioned and approved by the U.S. Bike Trails. So it's well established and also new, so it's in good condition. The section of 26th from the river to, or Pacific to 2nd is also not in disrepair as stated in the plans as maybe other sections of 26th. CenterPoint Energy just came through in 2014 and had to replace the piping in that area. So that whole route is completely new and in good condition for the trucks. The last item is the design, that it is not keeping the primary use, which is industrial, at the forefront, which is my understanding in the city codes and the design of street section of the city, that's supposed to be kept at the forefront. They have reduced the roads to 26 feet for the industrial trucks to use, and they've allotted 21 feet for the pedestrians and the bikes. And that proportion is completely unreasonable and unrealistic for the use in that area for all the traffic going through. Since the locks have been closed last summer or the summer before, the volume of trucks has significantly increased, and all of the businesses in that area are concerned about the safety for all the people involved. Lastly, we have not received any documents showing true justification and demand and want by the general public for that section. So I've asked Jeff Handelin if he could provide me with the meeting minutes as well as any letters from the general public specifically stating that they want that section as a bike path and pedestrian. Thank you.
Moving down the list, Alexis Penny.
Good morning, Chair Wright. Good morning, council members. Alexis Penny, 2430 Logan Avenue North. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning on 26th Avenue North. Obviously, I'm in support of the reconstruction project itself. There's a number of things I can talk about, especially with regard to the last speaker. But let's just talk about lighting. First and foremost, I sit on the Jordan Area Community Council. We have some old NRP funds. We'd be very much interested in working with the city to make sure those funds would be appropriated to produce lighting. I know you guys have a uniform code of assessment with regard to lighting in which you assess people, tax people, property tax people to pay for the lighting. I think this project deserves lighting, needs lighting, should not go without lighting. I want that to make that a priority. Second of all, I want to encourage you guys to look at rezoning that area between 2nd to the river. Specifically, people used to think that the North Loop or the warehouse district wouldn't be the type of development that it is currently. I think the same thing holds true for that section of the city. In addition to that, the Upper Harbor Terminal development that you want to do, that's going to greatly enhance that site as well as what comes south of there. I want a contiguous riverfront from the central riverfront up to city boundaries that's realistic, that includes housing, that is not industrial. Get those people off of the river. Stop polluting. And then I want to see bicycle trails, definitely like how we have, for example, on the West River Road, 2nd Street North. I want to see bike trails along the river, obviously, with the distance requirements that are necessary. And I want to make sure that the AFTAC, the Above the Falls plan, the River First plan is realized. And I don't know if CPED actually is willing to do that. And I'm here today to ask our city council members to make that happen.
Thank you for your testimony. Moving down the line, item 4, or person 4 is Kim Kaiser. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Kim Kaiser, and I have lived at 2601 DuPont for almost 22 years. Excuse me. I think it's a lot of work for very little benefit. The amount of boulevard that will be taken is less than 2 feet in a lot of places. There's trees on those boulevards. They'd have to be taken down. There's retaining walls right next to the sidewalk that would have to come down. There's no space for snow to be put anywhere. The snow would have to be put on the bike path. The bike path would not be usable in the wintertime. There's no other place to put the snow. It's just a narrow corridor. It's an old part of the city. It's a kind of a depressed part of the city. There's a lot of people that are on the bikes are teenagers that sell drugs. Increasing the bike path may increase the drug traffic. They're very territorial. I have 18 bullet holes in my house. People don't go out at night in my neighborhood unless they're up to trouble. A lot of people do not ride their bikes in the neighborhood. They go to a different part of the city, a park, to ride. Deerworth Parkway, Victory Memorial Parkway. People just do not mess with other people's yards. The sidewalk is so close to the house right now, increasing it, you would have the bike path right, you'd open the door and you'd knock someone off a bike pretty much. I mean, it's just that close. I don't know if you've seen pictures of the actual corridor, but it's a tight fit the way that it is. I just think it's a lot of work for very little benefit to increase that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Next we have Kevin, I believe it's O'Hare. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. I'm Kevin O'Hearn. I'm from Continental Cement, located on 3326th Avenue North, right along the Mississippi River. I'm here to oppose the project. Continental Cement shares the very same concerns that Ms. Howard did from representing Willman Trucking. Our foremost concern is public safety with all the heavy trucks that travel along 26th, in particular in and out of our property, to add bicycle traffic and foot traffic. Interfacing with that is a public concern. We're also very concerned about the amount that's been assessed to our property. This has kind of been sold as an improvement, and for us, it's definitely the exact opposite. It's going to make it more difficult for us to operate. So to assess us for this job or for this project is difficult for us to handle. I'd like to elaborate a little more about safety. Being right on the Mississippi River, there's a bike trail that runs along West River Road that ends just south of our property. There are several occasions during the summertime where bicyclists cut through our property because they don't know how to get to the bike path that ends south of our property. If a bike path were to extend past or down 26th Avenue all the way to our property and end, we're very concerned that the number of people that are trying to cut through our property would dramatically increase. Obviously, we are an industrial site. If we have pedestrians and or bicycle traffic cutting through, interfacing with rail cars, trucks, loaders that run through our property, we're very concerned about their safety. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you
for your testimony. We also have Bob Biragel. I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly, but please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I applaud you, sir. You did very well with that name. Bob Biragel with Aggregate Industries. The property that that concerns us is 65 26th Avenue, right adjacent to Continental Concrete, or Continental Cement, excuse me. Our concern is also the safety issue. The road that we're currently using is approximately 40 feet wide, and this plan calls for a reduction down to 26 feet. As was mentioned earlier, the lock and dam closed last June. Consequently, there's a significant additional number of truck trips that will come through this area. We will add something in the neighborhood of 20,000 trucks crossing. In this case, the proposed bike path is now shown to come across the north side of along 26th Avenue. And I would suspect that something in the neighborhood of 80,000 truck trips a day, or a year, will move through that area, given what we are generating, what Continental's generating, and the other industries in that area. So again, the safety issue is the biggest concern for us. The plan, I think we all understand that ultimately the city would like to see that area developed to something other than industrial. And so I guess I would say to you folks, if there's a way for you to put off the construction of the bike path and the sidewalks until such time as the industries are moved out of that area, that might be the safest and most prudent path for you to take. So we do object to that part of the plan.
Thank you for your testimony. Any further people signed in? Anyone else wish to speak to the matter before us? Anyone wish to speak? See none. I will close the public hearing. Council members, any commentary? I'll yield the floor to Mr. Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few things. I just wanted to point out that this is a project that is going to cost upwards of about $12 million, of which only $2 million are being assessed to the folks. And I get it. I mean, when you get assessments, I mean, it's just tough all the way around, whether you're residential or commercial. The other couple of things I want to mention is, Mr. Chair, I've lived close to 26th Avenue North for the past, I want to say 13 years. And, this is one of the projects where, in my view, I've been to many meetings where we've assessed people, and most people have not been very happy. I mean, with regards to 26th Avenue North, generally speaking, people have been very happy about it getting renovated or repaired in such ways. I think most people have complained quite a bit to me with regards to the conditions of 26th Avenue North. I mean, 26th Avenue North, in my view, should have been repaired decades ago, actually. And now is the time to do it. And so I'm happy that it's getting done, or that it will get done soon. My concerns with regards to this project is that initially, about 2 years ago, Public Works came into the community and talked to the community about how this would be a 2-year project. And now there's talk of it possibly being a 3-year project. And, for myself, I'd like to see it done this year with all deliberate speed, just because it will be unsettling, and it will be very difficult for the residents who live in that area just to have that sort of disruption for just this year. But I mean, if it goes into next year also, it would be very difficult for the folks. The speaker spoke about the issue of lighting, and I certainly want to point that out as well, that we have a process for doing lighting on these specific projects. And in this situation, if my understanding was that if the lighting had been approved, it would have been essentially anywhere from 50% to 100% of the assessments for the streets for lighting, and that would have been very difficult for the folks who live in Ward 5 specifically, but even the folks who live in Ward 4 along that outline. And so, with regards to our process, when the petition was out, the folks who responded, resoundingly said no to the lighting. And, it wasn't for lack of desire to have the lighting. It was much more for just, sheer fact that, it would have been hurtful for their pocketbooks. But, for myself, when we build something amazing like this, $12 million project, it would be nice to have lighting on there. And my understanding is that, the cost is somewhere a little bit upwards of about $1 million. But, for future projects and projects like this, it would just be really great just to have that, just because, if anything, it's a showcase. And, in my view, talking long-term, with regards to 26th Avenue North and, whatever we call it, whether it be a greenway or so, this greenway is going to pretty much be the example for future greenways in terms of, how we do projects. And so, this pie in the sky project, the North Minneapolis Greenway that runs north-south instead of east-west, this 26th Avenue North Greenway is going to really give people a real chance to see what a greenway could do for them and for their communities. And so, Mr. Chair, just all these different things, goes to the point of, me saying that, if we're going to build it, we should build it right. And also, if we're going to build it, in a project like this, it's been needed for a long time, especially, I can't speak to the industrial area all that much just because, I don't hang out there all that much. But the parts in which I drive all the time, it's been needed for quite a long time. And so I'm glad it's happening, but I would hope that it happens and gets done this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. And I agree that we should be and are looking at our policy regarding grade separated trails that also have a pedestrian component. So I think that staff is aware of that and will be working through those issues. So thanks for raising them and continually raising them well. And I think, as you know, and I know, that this is a project that is to eventually join projects over on the east side and connect the two communities with a facility that we don't have currently, but would be very important as an east-west connector, a backbone, if you will, for all our north-south routes, which many are, given the orientation of the city. So thank you for your commentary, and I recognize it well. And then also just a quick sort of commentary on the industrial uses or contemplated conversions. Yes, we do have the River First Plan. It's an official plan of the city of Minneapolis and the Park and Rec, and recognized by the Metropolitan Council. So it's a real plan, and there's significant activity implementing that plan. When you're doing something that's probably 30 to 50 years in the making, big individual projects still look small in comparison to the overall goal, but they are underway. However, not all areas will be converted from their current land use, and we don't know what configuration. And there are other parts of the cities that will never have land use different than industrial, yet are contemplated to be multimodal. So I think if we adopted the notion that industrial precludes bike trails, that would mean that there's several communities that would never, ever see a bike trail of significance that connected to other routes. So just a consideration, though safety is foremost, and I think those points have been made. Perhaps staff could, in aggregate, respond to some of the residential and business testimony that we had today, to the extent you find relevant answers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Jeff Handeland with Transportation Engineering Design. The purpose of the project is the pavement condition, and the pavement condition for the reconstruction area is too poor for renovation and needs to be reconstructed. Now that we're reconstructing those pavements is the time to engage the community, consult the citywide plans, the neighborhood plans. We followed that process, which resulted in the layout that was approved by City Council about a year ago. That layout defined the curb lines. So we're still very willing to take a look at the detailed plan as far as driveway sizes and locations with, for example, St. Anne's and, for example, the industrial businesses on the east end to make sure that our design is compatible with their commercial and business operations. I think I concur that, designing the separate bike path and sidewalks is going to be safest for all modes because most cyclists and pedestrians will choose to use those instead of walking the street. The wider boulevards will provide storage for snow. And as far as the duration of the project, we are structuring the contract documents to encourage completion in as short of time frame as possible. However, we do want to make sure we stage the project properly up front so that no segment is left half finished over winter suspension.
Thank you. Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. I have one small question. Somebody raised the terminus when it reaches the east side by the river there, and the bike path kind of ends there. And I think that is an important thing for us to be thinking about. But the point is this whole area, I believe, is going to be redeveloped soon, and there's going to be connections, and we kind of have to wait on that connection until that redevelopment happens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Gordon. Yes, through Public Works, consulting the neighborhood plans and the community meetings, the connection and improved access to the river was important. And, we saw that is coming. So we designed the facility, appropriately with separated facilities. And so I think that will be safer because that's where, bicyclists will be where truckers and other vehicles expect them to be instead of these, cut through routes that they're apparently using now. So that being said, I will, also work with the businesses to make sure we maintain access during construction and size their driveways appropriately so that their trucks can turn out. I have to design the project that way while they're still operating there.
And so when I was looking at the layout design, it looked like when it reached the end, though, of the bike of the project, there still wasn't a clearly defined way that bikes should get back to the river trail. So I guess that's what I'm referring to. And I think we should start thinking and planning on, well, what is the short-term solution then before all this other stuff happens? So we maybe work with the private current landowners. I'm not sure what to do, but that's just a little part that I just wanted to call out that I say that I think, yeah, we'll probably have to work with that and somehow figure out what we want bikes to do. And so they understand where to go if they want to go north or south along the river. Does that make sense? And I was just looking at the layout, so I'd just call attention to that. I also just wanted to, though, highlight what an incredible piece of infrastructure this will be and the connections that it makes from the river to Fairview Park all the way to Theater Worth. I'm very excited about this, and I try to celebrate all the great projects in my colleagues' wards, but every so often I'm envious, and this is one that I think I'm envious of. And it's probably long overdue that something like this gets put in there, but I'm just very supportive and glad to see this coming forward.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I think the notion that, the project has its main componentry, but there might be some issues how they dovetail with the industrial area, issues have been raised. And of course, short-term or even midterm sort of remedy to a dead end that could be confusing and potentially dangerous to people. I think that is due extra work, and I think you're receptive to that commentary, if I understand correctly. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will move approval as stated by staff, giving fair note to the testimony today and some of the issues raised. Any further conversation? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. Thank you very much. We have now item 3, also a public hearing. In this regard, 6th Avenue North from 5th Street North to 200 feet north of Washington Avenue North paving project approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jeff Hanlon with Transportation Engineering Design. 6th Avenue North is scheduled for reconstruction in 2016 between 5th Street North and the dead end north of Washington Avenue. Public Works designed the project considering input from the public, including the Heritage Street Plan and public meetings held on October 6, 2014 and January 21st, 2015. Public Works also reached out to businesses specifically and designed the street to improve pedestrian facilities while ensuring that the street will also still work for the adjacent businesses, including preservation of the existing loading docks and the associated trucking the businesses depend on. City Council approved the project layout on March 20th, 2015, and the detailed design is now complete. Public Works held another public meeting last Tuesday to inform the property owners about the assessments method and process. And we plan to hold a 4th public meeting prior to the start of construction to give some information about what to expect for access and trying to limit disruption during construction. Today, Public Works is asking City Council to pass resolutions ordering the work to proceed, adopting the special assessments, authorizing sale of the assessment bonds, and authorizing abandonment and removal of any areaways in conflict with the project. The intent of this project is to work around the known areaways and not impact the existing loading docks. I'll stay nearby in case there are any questions.
Any questions per the presentation? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Has anyone signed in? No one signed in. Does anyone wish to come forward to give testimony? Anyone wish to speak to this matter? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I will move approval as stated by staff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. That item carries. Oh, Councilmember Fry, you can have the floor.
Well, yeah, I was told that when you get to yes, you should shut up. So thank you for the vote. Staff has obviously done a whole lot of work on this project, and it's an entire revamp of 6th Avenue, which up to this point has been a street filled with not just little potholes, but royal sinkholes. And the revamp, including pavers and bringing the street back to its original condition is very much needed. So thank you for the support.
Thank you for that, Council Member. All right, so we move along, and we have item 4, which is the Blue Line Light Rail extension, municipal consent before us. Director Kotke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Flum, our transportation planner, will start the presentation out, and then we'll hand over the presentation to the Blue Line Extension staff.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and council members. We have a very large project to talk about today. This is the Blue Line Extension, which will serve a number of communities, including Minneapolis. I'm going to be brief. I'm going to turn it over to Dan Solar from the Botno Project, or the Blue Line Extension Project Office. For many years, this was called the Botno Line. So for those of us who have worked on this for a very long time, it's hard to not say Botno when we're talking about Blue Line, but they're one and the same. Want to first let folks know that the city has been involved for a very long time in this project, and the last time we had came to you with respect to this project, we had a number of concerns and comments with respect to the draft environmental impact statement. That process came and went, and the Metropolitan Council, who manages this project, set up something called an issue resolution team, which consisted of folks from Met Council, their consultants, MnDOT, Hennepin County, and Minneapolis staff. So for the last year and a half or so, we've been participating in weekly issue resolution team meetings to address a number of the concerns that we brought forth. And most of those concerns have been satisfied. There are still some outstanding things. You see in your staff letter or staff report that there are a few remaining items with respect to municipal consent. But I want to, before talking about municipal consent, I want to thank the folks who served on that committee on behalf of city staff. Want to recognize Jenny Hager, Rebecca Hughes, Jim Voles, and Jack Byers for their work on this. I also want to recognize the folks in the community who are here today. There are a number of folks that represented the Business Advisory Committee, the Community Advisory Committee. A lot of folks were participating in station area planning. A lot of people have gone to public meetings, and so that has helped make this a better project. Kind of getting into why are we here today? Essentially, you're being asked to weigh in on the physical design of the corridor. The Metropolitan Council released plans back in December. Per statute, you've got a certain amount of time. I believe it's March 4th is the deadline to act. You have the ability to approve or disapprove the plans, but based on the work that we have done over the last several months, staff recommend that this essentially municipal consent plan be approved. And with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Dan Solar from the project office. He is the project director for the Blue Line extension, and he can talk a little more about the details of what is in the municipal consent drawings or the physical design drawings. So we'll pull up the presentation and we'll have Mr. Solar join us. Dan?
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Chair and members of the Transportation Committee today. My name's Dan Solar. I'm the project director from Metro Council on the Blue Line Extension project. Don is correct that we have had and made a tremendous amount of progress on the project since we really took over and began the project at Met Council late in 2014, early in 2015. And I was here about a year ago, maybe not quite, to kind of lay out where we were going and what we were doing with the project. And as Don said, we've moved through a lot of issues and resolved a lot of pieces, most recently with the adoption of a revised scope and a revised cost estimate of the Blue Line Extension Light Rail project at the end of the year. That was adopted by Corridor Management Committee at the end of the year. Mayor Hodges sits on the Corridor Management Committee, Councilmember Johnson as well sit on there. And so we had moved into that then allowed us to release our municipal consent plans, and that's really why we're here today. Now, my presentation isn't real long. This is really meant for the public hearing piece today, but we put a map together so we show the Blue Line Extension project, and I think, as most folks know, it's a 13-mile extension of the original Hiawatha, now Blue Line LRT project from Target Field Station in downtown Minneapolis, runs through Minneapolis, up through the cities of Golden Valley and Robbinsdale and Crystal and Brooklyn Park. 13 miles, 11 new stations, estimated ridership 27,000 riders per day by 2040. And it is a project that we now have in our New Starts process. So I know this committee and the city of Minneapolis understands municipal consent. I was involved with municipal consent on the Green Line, Central Corridor, where I worked for many years. I know you've had maybe even more than one municipal consent opportunity on the Green Line extension, and now the Blue Line extension municipal consent piece. So what are we doing with municipal consent? We're putting in place at about the 15 to 20% design phase of the project. We're putting in place and looking for concurrence with the physical design features of the project.
Where's the track going to go? Where are the stations going to go? What roads are being reconstructed? What roads are being impacted? Those elements. Are we going to have an operations and maintenance facility, and where is it going to be? Where are the sidewalks and paths and streets that get rebuilt? Long way to go after this in terms of final design, but that's the purpose of where we are with municipal consent. So just to walk through real quickly where we are now with in the city of Minneapolis with the project, you can see on this exhibit that we come off of Target Field Station, and then while Southwest stays up in the air around and comes down Royalston to the Royalston Station, the Blue Line extension will come down from the Target Field Station and cross the 7th Street intersection at grade. We spent a lot of time with city staff on the at-grade intersection configuration of 7th Street and Bolton Memorial Highway, bike paths along 7th, how we join the turn lanes, keep that in place, and we believe we have a very good design on that piece. We continue along Bolton Memorial Highway over I-94, and then have a reconstruction. We've now identified that we will fully reconstruct the segment of Highway 55 from 94 to about Theodore Wirth Park, where we make the turn onto the Burlington Northern Railroad. That segment was a piece of a great deal of work on our behalf at the project office, the city, the county, Minnesota DOT. That's a trunk highway. It needs to be a roadway that continues to be a trunk highway, but it also needs to be made safer for LRT operating in the middle. So a lot of the folks here in the community that are here to testify today have talked to us a lot about pedestrian access, pedestrian access, pedestrian access, and pedestrian access. Let's make it safe. Let's make sure the signal timing is long enough to get people to the stations. Let's make sure that we utilize traffic signals at non-roadway crossings that are going to access the station platforms. If we're going to have LRT in the middle of Trunk Highway 55, let's make it both a roadway that can move vehicles as needed and is safe. So we're talking about bringing the speed down to 35. That's part of the process. We're talking about reconstructing it, but taking away some of the wider shoulders that are out there, and especially on that inside, and making it a safe crossing roadway. So that's a piece of the design. We have 2 stations in the center of Highway 55 in Minneapolis. One that you see here, right between Van Wyck and Bryant. That's the first station, and then the second station just immediately on the east side of Penn. At Penn.
We have some questions from council members. Councilmember Gordon, followed by Councilmember Bender.
So obviously this section is one of great concern for Minneapolis because it's in Minneapolis. And I appreciate all the discussion about access and pedestrians getting there. I'm curious if what our municipal consent today doesn't mean that we've signed off, that you've solved everything, we're not going to do any more pedestrian enhancements along the way, or does it? Are we also approving then the curb bump outs and the number of lanes on there with this consent? Does that make sense to you?
Please. Mr. Chair, Councilmember Gordon, it doesn't necessarily reflect the fact that, are we going to have a signal here? Is this the radius? Should a sidewalk be? But it does, in fact, approve the fact that we're moving forward with reconstructing the roadway, that it still would be reconstructed as a 6-lane roadway with left turn lanes at the, I want to say the 8 signalized locations that are between 94 and where we turn off. That it also, though, be a roadway that gets reduced in speed to 35, that the lanes get narrower than they are today, and that we reconstruct the sidewalks and the boulevards to put those pieces in place. So the basic physical design is part of the municipal consent. The final design about, do we add another pedestrian crossing somewhere, or do we change the signal timing and all the specifics, that all comes as part of the final design.
Okay, then I'll just ask a couple questions. And you already clarified that the speed limit for the cars as well as the train will be held down to 35 or lower.
That Chair, Councilmember Gordon, that's correct.
And all the pedestrian crossings will be at grade, so the train, the cars, the pedestrians, and everybody else will be on the same plane. There's no bridges or tunnels or anything like that.
Chair, Councilmember Gordon, that's correct.
Okay. And I don't know if there's any other features. I mean, we can see where it looks like there's white marks where you're saying maybe there's going to be some curb extensions there at those crossings, and that will help that. You could call out any other enhancements that you think that are going into there. It still seems to me like it's very wide roads. It's still going to look like there's a big barrier and a big wall, and I'm still concerned about that it's not going to actually help connect the neighborhoods on either side of this, but it's going to seem like it's more challenging and more difficult. So I just want to note that. And I also am curious if our own pedestrian advisory committee reviewed this and weighed in and gave any advice and input. You may not know that, but perhaps our staff knows that and what vetting process it went through there. So that's a little bit.
Sure, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Gordon, we've certainly worked with staff in great detail throughout the project, and I know that city staff has pulled in various different groups as needed, so they very well might have done that.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know you still have more to give in your presentation as well, but could you zoom in on one of the sort of typical intersections, maybe Penn Avenue, and just talk us through the cross section as you're describing the project? As I look at Penn, I think I see seven lanes of traffic plus the train in the middle. And so then I wondered what the crossing distance there is today and what it will be after the train is constructed. It seems to me that it's not changing. And then I have one follow-up question for those details.
So here, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Bender, is a blow up, kind of okay. It's not great, but it's okay. So there's a couple pieces about the crossing of 55 that we have to take into account when we talk about it. Number one, you are correct that to get from one side of Highway 55 to the other side of Highway 55 in this area does not get shorter, simply because it's a 3-lane road with a left turn lane today. It'll be a 3-lane road with a left turn lane in the future. But it also has LRT in the middle, not the median that's there today, and especially in locations where we've got a platform, a center platform like this, the middle is wider than it is today. The amount of street that a pedestrian is required to cross where there are vehicles is smaller, is narrower. So in other words, when you add up what the bituminous, what the street is from one corner to the other, it's less time that a pedestrian is exposed to the street. Now, is that a big deal? Well, sure, it's a big deal that a pedestrian isn't as exposed to vehicles, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the overall crossing is any shorter. Also, with pedestrians or station platforms in the middle, pedestrians are accessing the station platforms as well. So some of the improvements that we've put in place, the sidewalks today along this piece of 55, many of them are right behind the existing curb with no boulevard area whatsoever. The entire piece will have the east-west sidewalks back from the existing road with a 10-foot boulevard, likely with a relocation of a lot of the existing trees that are in the median into those boulevard areas, so we can have that green back in there. That's a piece we've heard a lot from the community. This whole section is one that we spent a tremendous amount of time with, where we really had to work on balancing how do we continue to provide moving of vehicles versus turning movements into the neighborhood versus pedestrian safety versus where do we put LRT versus how do we keep those functionalities in place. And through our process with the various stakeholders, we believe this is a workable end.
Do you happen to know how many vehicles per day drive through the corridor? And can you talk more about why we need 7 lanes of traffic here?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Bender, I'm not positive on exactly the volumes today, a couple of the reasons why it's in the greater than 30,000 vehicles a day number. So it's a significant number. Highway 55 does a couple of things. It is, as a trunk highway, it serves as a fairly significant east-west corridor in from the western suburbs into downtown Minneapolis. So, well, why does it need to stay? As we worked on it, number one, if it gets narrower, the belief is, where does that diverted traffic go? So there was talk of, well, how much traffic in Glenwood handle, and how much traffic will use Penn, and what will happen to Plymouth. And so there was definitely some concerns by the county and by city staff over some of those. Secondly, right now, it's an interesting roadway in that most roadways that are radial like this, you tend to think, well, okay, so it's real heavy inbound in the morning, inbound meaning eastbound into Minneapolis, and really heavy westbound in the PM out of Minneapolis. This section of Highway 55 is busiest eastbound AM and PM. And the reason that is primarily because people do not want to be on 394 to make that turn on the 94. And so they use this segment of 55 as much eastbound in the PM peak as in the morning, where it's also heavy. It's heavier. It was a surprise to me in looking at that, but then in looking at what happens on 394, this becomes a reliever. And so people don't go down there if they want to go 94 west or east. They come up by Lindale and then make the move onto there. So that's some of the reasons why it has to stay, and it needs to stay in the jurisdictionally as a trunk highway. And MnDOT's analysis is it really needs to stay a 6-lane road. Now, on MnDOT's other side, yeah, we can make it narrower in terms of lane width. We can bring the speed down to 35. We can change the character. We can make it, by adding additional signals, we can make it a better roadway, but it still, by a capacity, needs to be 6.
Just finally, wouldn't we assume that some of the folks that are driving today might take our new, very expensive train?
Chair, Councilmember Bender, of course, I dream at night that will be the case. I mean, but I think we can look at the fact that we are exceeding ridership. We are exceeding ridership on Central Corridor, on Green Line, and I'm not sure 94 is any less busy, and I'm not sure that University Avenue, it's a little bit less busy, but yes, we hope people will. We certainly hope people will, but they won't take it to Plymouth. And they won't take it to, the far reaches of Golden Valley because it doesn't go there. Will it help? Yes, it'll provide another alternative. It'll provide another option for people to move around the region and take some people behind cars, but something tells me there's going to be somebody right behind them to fill that spot.
Councilmember Gordon?
Well, just because University Avenue got mentioned, I just wanted to say we definitely took some lanes out there and everything worked out just fine. So maybe more people are using the train or not, or maybe they're on 94. But I do think we've proven that we can put a train down the middle of a big road and take away some of the car space for that road, and it still works. And that's just a comment. I'll let you get on with your next slides. I'm sure I'll have more questions.
Thank you. Any further questions in this area of inquiry? Seeing none, please proceed.
And of course, Chair, 55 is the biggest focus of. So 55, obviously, that segment is the biggest piece in Minneapolis, the biggest function that takes place. As soon as we get, as you can see from the drawing here, to the west end of Theodore Wirth, or to the east end of Theodore Wirth Park, that's where we will make a turn and we will go underneath a new bridge on westbound Highway 55. We'll go down to the Burlington Northern Railroad corridor and then start heading north along BNSF Railroad property. And even though we're technically in the city of Golden Valley here, we put this piece up because one of the things as I was here last time that was not known were we going to have a station on Plymouth Avenue at Theodore Wirth Park? The answer to that is yes. And so we'll be reconstructing that Plymouth Avenue Bridge. We'll have a station right to the north of Plymouth Avenue there, so you can see the Minneapolis neighborhoods to the east and then Theodore Wirth Park to the west. That's a station that you can see where the line is. It's technically in Golden Valley, but it's really serving a high number of Minneapolis residents. And then to the north off of this drawing, there'll also be a station at Golden Valley Road as well, which is also on the railroad corridor just next to Golden Valley Road. So that's really all that we had to present today. I'll be here in case there's any follow-up questions from the council as necessary, but we really appreciate staff's work with us. They've been with us weekly for the last year. We've worked on a lot of issues. We've talked about a lot of things. We think we've got a positive project to bring forward with the extension of this LRT. So thanks.
Thank you for the presentation. Any further questions regarding the presentation? Seeing none, I will then open the public hearing. Given the volume of people interested in this, we will use a timer, correct? And I believe you have it set for 3 minutes. And so we want to be respectful of everyone's ability to address the body today. I will start with the list and we'll just proceed as follows. Beginning with Alexis Penny. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Chair, council members. Thanks again for letting me speak. Specifically, I really want to thank so much council members Gordon and Bender for bringing up Penn Avenue and the fact that this is sincerely a missed opportunity with reducing our lane width that we have here on Olson Memorial Highway. I sincerely think this is a real social and economic injustice that's taking place in North Minneapolis. Particularly, there will be a Title VI complaint filed against the city with regard to Olson Memorial Highway and a number of issues that we have concerns around. The development along Olson Memorial Highway needs to embody the community's vision. 30% affordable housing is what we're seeking. In addition to that, I did note that the gentleman had mentioned that there would be a reconstruction on 94 with regard to the bike lane running from Theodore Wirth. Let's just ensure that we get it all the way to Target Field. Let's get it all the way to downtown. Let's do it right the first time. I've already made that clear. And then in addition to making it safer, we all know that this is not doing that. There's schools, there's parks, there's residential housing. We need to be mindful of the people that live in this neighborhood, and I'm going to let them speak now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Steve Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, my name is Steve Kramer with Minneapolis Downtown Council. I'll be brief. You do have a lot of community voices here, and important to hear them. But I also wanted to provide a perspective about the importance of building out the regional transit system with Blue Line Extension as an important step in that system for the overall health and well-being of our core downtown. The critical element for our 2025 plan is to build that system out. Lead the nation in transportation options is our fairly immodest goal in that regard, and this is an important step in that process. We need to provide more and better ways for people to get to and around downtown, and this is one of those steps. So we certainly stand strongly in support of municipal consent, along with support for the Orange Line, support for other arterial BRT lines that are in the planning process, and we'll also look forward to working with you and many others to crack the nut at the legislature of finding a new and sustainable revenue source to make all of these projects happen. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Richard Adair, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Richard Adair, 200 Upton Avenue South. I live 5 minutes walk away from the Penn Avenue station, and I'm always walking and trying to get my bike across 55. And I also appreciate the hard work that the various staffers and community members have done to make this a better crossing. That's not what I want to talk about in my 3 minutes. I think everyone in the room would agree that Minneapolis needs to work as hard as it can and as quickly as it can to reduce racial disparities and make sure that all its citizens have the same opportunity to get ahead. What I would like to talk about is being as smart as we can. What works? One example is early childhood education. There's lots of data that 3 and 4-year-olds in Head Start do better than their peers in high school and as young adults. What about transit? A large national study done at Harvard that was released last year looked at what neighborhood factors were associated with children who were born into poverty being able to escape it. What do you think was the most important factor? School test scores? Crime in the neighborhood? Percentage of two-parent families? No, the most important factor was transportation. Think about why. Being able to get to and from work quickly means more time to parent, more time to meet and make friends with all kinds of different people and learn from each other. To connect both we need to build out both light rail lines, and we need to connect the north side, not only thinking about pedestrians, but bus service. We need bus transit, rapid transit on Penn, and we need a circulator bus. Look at my hands for a second here, that goes west on Plymouth or some other east-west street, south on Penn, east on 394, and north on Van White. Since I've lived in this neighborhood for 40 years, I'd like to acquaint you with a couple of facts of local geography. This route is possible because in the 1970s, the Bryn Mawr neighborhood insisted on an extra lane eastbound on 394 so that vehicles going from Penn to Dunwoody don't have to merge with neighborhood traffic. And because City Council person Jackie Cherry Holmes, who occupied Mr. Yang's seat at the time, insisted that Van White Boulevard extend all the way south to Dunwoody so that North Minneapolis could be connected with the rest of the city. Let's leverage these wise decisions from years past and give Northsiders a quick and reliable ride to work. It's a matter of basic fairness. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We now will go to Alyssa Rich. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, thank you. My name is Alyssa Rich. I live at 824 Vincent in the Willard Hay Homewood neighborhood. The reason I bought my home was the proximity to Theaterworth Park. There's a couple access points along the parkway that this neighborhood uses. Granted, they may be unofficial. The community definitely uses them. And so my concern with the light rail going in is the separation of this just gem of a neighborhood. It's got access to downtown and access to the park. It's a safe neighborhood, a lot of longtime community or neighbors that live there and that use the park on a daily basis. So I'm hoping that we can come up with a way to make sure that this community continues to have access and safe access to the park. I know that that we're trying to just make Northside a safe place for people and make it a place that people enjoy. It gets a bad rap, and I don't want to lose this community by separating. This is an asset for this community. Also, my other concern is environmental. There's deer just 2 blocks from my house, coyote, eagles, everything. And so I use it, I see it every day, and I'm concerned with the trains going through I just want to make sure that we pay attention. I'm in support of the train. I think it's going to add to property value, but I just don't want to lose with this community and the reasons that I bought my home in this area. So thank you.
Thank you. Nestor Garcia, please come forward and name and address for the record.
Hello, good morning. I live in Harrison neighborhood. I've been there for 2.5 years now, and I really enjoy it there. And I support the new light rail that's going to be going through Olson, but there's a few concerns that I have. One of them would be employment opportunities that were stated in the redevelopment plan. For 2015, the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in Minnesota was $894. In order to afford this, a family must make about $35,700 annually, which equals out to $17.20 an hour. I hope that these jobs that are created are a living wage, so that families can afford to stay in the community that they were brought up in. I'm afraid that there would be some sort of gentrification forcing people out of the community. And that's, I want to keep the community how it is as much as possible as it is right now. Other concerns that we've brought or that we've heard from people in the area, especially in Park Plaza, are construction during the summer. A lot of the apartments there have double panel windows. In the summer, they don't have AC, so they got to keep them open. And they're afraid that with all the construction, dust and the debris will get in there. So if they close their windows, there's going to be pretty warm temperature for the kids and the elderly. Another thing is timing for crossing Olson. Like people mentioned before, there's schools, there's kids crossing all the time. I take the bus all the time, so the 19 drops me off on Morgan, and I gotta cross to Glenwood, which is where I live. And I honestly wait a long time to cross, and sometimes I have to either run across or just walk really fast, and I'm fully capable of walking, but with people with disabilities, with wheelchairs or whatever, that might be a little bit harder for them. As well as another concern would be keeping as many trees as possible around. We're in danger of global warming, and keeping it green as possible would be better for everybody in the community. Also, the fares for the light rail, hopefully keeping it where it's at now and not increasing it in the long run will encourage more people to jump to use the service. So, yeah.
Thank you for that commentary. And I'll move to Richard Panzeroni. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, good morning, council members. I've lived in the Harrison neighborhood since 1980 for 36 years, and I've seen it go through a lot of changes. I've seen it go from bad to worse, and now it's really improving, and I'd like to see that continue. I want to speak for the needs of senior citizens. The senior citizens that I've talked to in my neighborhood are really excited about the Blue Line extension. Particularly the ones that are in wheelchairs and use walkers. Getting on the light rail is a lot easier than getting on a city bus. Also, they're excited about the transit shelters that can offer some warming elements and a little more room. If you've ever boarded a bus on Olson Memorial Highway in the middle of the winter when it's below zero and you got a 20-mile-an-hour wind and the traffic along Olson Memorial Highway is speeding along at 40, 45 miles an hour, it's not a real fun place to wait for a bus. So the senior citizens, essentially, because of the weather and the accommodations, a lot of them become shut-ins. And I think that's a very unfortunate thing. Also, the traffic lights, the button you press to get across Olson, gives you approximately 30 seconds to get across. Now, I'm a handicapped individual. Many of the elderly on the north side in the Harrison neighborhood are also. And it seems that maybe an easy fix would be just to give more time when you press that button. But I don't just want to speak for the senior citizens. I want to speak for the youth also. As Mr. Adair touched upon, having a light rail would be a wonderful thing in providing the transportation that's so desperately needed for the youth of the Northside community. Having a job on the weekends or during the summer helps them approach adulthood with a certain level of responsibility and dedication that I really think helps to raise an adult with the kinds of values of responsibility and dedication that is so needed today. I'm looking forward to the light rail, and many of the people I've talked to, if we could just all get together and see that it's designed in an efficient fashion that serves the needs of everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Moving down, we have, and that was Richard Panzeroni at 1903 4th Avenue North, correct? Okay. And then we have William Crenshaw. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm William Crenshaw. I live at 324 Russell Avenue North. And I live in the Harrison neighborhood. I'm a member of the board. I support the development of the light rail, but I also have some concerns about it. There's a lot of mature trees that are going to come down on the median on Olson, and the north side is disproportionately affected by air pollution. So we're concerned about all those trees coming down and would like each tree that's cut down to be replanted in our neighborhood or over north. We also wanted the existing houses and businesses to be preserved instead of just knocking them down. We want green space increased and access provided for it. We're also concerned about dust during construction and want that minimized as much as possible. We also want new development to be limited to 5 stories because we don't want the neighborhood feel to change. And we also support the bike lane. Thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you for your comments. All right. Thomas Beaumont, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Morning, I'm Tom Beaumont, and I live in downtown Minneapolis near Loring Park. Full disclosure, my family is transit dependent by choice, so anything I say in favor of transit benefits me personally, so I'll let you know that right away. I just want to make a couple of observational remarks that come from my position over the past 15 years as a up front and center host, if you will, of visitors from out of town, from the region, as well as from the rest of the country and even the world, at one of the major hotels downtown, which hosts conferences and conventions of all sorts, from the Republican convention on up or down, depending on your point of view, to small conventions from many parts of the region. When I'm trying to work with people that are from out of town, trying to familiarize themselves with the city, trying to understand how to negotiate their way around and really how to make their lives a little easier in a land that they're not all that familiar with, I frequently try to get people to use transit as an effort to save them a little bit of money, to help them see the city a little better than you can in a cab, and just to help them get a feel for the city as a whole. I found almost to a person that folks will not ride the bus. You can offer them as much direction as you possibly can muster as to how, when, and where to get the bus. You can offer them all sorts of incentives, and they're frightened of the bus. They don't see it as, if you will, a world-class, much overused term, but as a world-class way of transportation. Equally, on the other side of the coin, when I talk with them about light rail, show them the easily negotiable maps and so on and so forth, most of them are actually quite delighted for the opportunity to try something different and to have a chance to go to major places in our community in a way that's convenient and almost 24-hour service for them, so they don't have to worry about missing a bus or missing a ride or anything of that sort. It's also important that our light rail does serve currently the airport as well as Union Station, which is the base for what little Amtrak service we have currently, but hopefully budding. So I just want to say that in service to our city, serving the region much better and much more efficiently, and being much more welcoming and open to people from around the world and from out greater Minnesota, I want to keep attention on light rail. I also might make one other remark in reference to something that was said a little earlier about the efforts to work on highway, is it 55, 65? The highway that the light rail will go on. It's politically important, but I'm not sure of the wisdom of working very, very hard and spending a lot of money to make it a lot easier for people to continue in their automobile when we're looking at for people to find an option. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We will now call up Dimitri Powers. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Chair and council members. My name is Dimitri Powers, Transit-Oriented Development Organizer for Harrison Neighborhood Association. We support the Harrison Neighborhood, along with Harrison Neighborhood Association, supports the development of the Blue Line Extension Light Rail Project as an investment to catalyze development, new investments for the neighborhood, but we do not support it as a commuter line. We would like to emphasize that Harrison is not an extension of downtown or the North Loop, and that we do not want a downtown feel. We also like to emphasize that that designs are created that are pedestrian friendly and fully accessible, that inhibits crime and improves the sense of safety, as well as increasing crossing times. We also want to emphasize that new development heights be limited to 5 stories, and that Harrison supports mixed-use development. We also like to emphasize that any new housing investments be made at a minimum of 30% of affordable housing options, with numbers of units and rents that reflect the demographics of Harrison neighborhood at current area median incomes, and using a cost burden analysis. We would also like to emphasize that any new economic development that's put into the neighborhood as far as jobs provide short and long-term living wage jobs for Harrison residents as well as residents of North Minneapolis. We'd also like to emphasize that we'd like green space along Olsen to be preserved, as well as a plan put in place to replace the trees in the median of Olsen within the neighborhood in North Minneapolis area. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'll call Penny Serrara. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Pani Siarat. I work for Lao ASEAN Center. I came here with many people from the Olsen Townhome. Olsen Townhome located on the south side of Highway 55 and Humboldt. They live there for many, many years, I think. I like a public housing. They right there, go through there. Hopefully, the fare for using the light rail is cheap. And also, she concerned, and everybody else concerned. They live there, they have a garden. They want to keep the garden, make sure because they understand they have a new development there in that area, like a new townhome or something. If the new townhome build up, make sure low income, affordable housing for them. And last thing, they want to keep the garden there for enjoyment for the community, for the own people live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Thanks.
No,
okay.
Can I speak? I do the translation of the.
Sure, that would be fine.
My name is Jomkam Sudali, and I live in the Olsen Townhome. And I am speaking for all Laotians who living in Olsen Townhome. For the new development in the future, any new housing development should include minimum 30% to 40% of unit as affordable housing, please including or acceptable Laotian. Please keep the garden. We are needed. The garden is the only place for elderly, daily habit activity in reasonable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Next, I have Steve Kramer. I think he already spoke, unless it's a different Steve Kramer. And then Richard. Oh, wait a minute. Wrong list. Sorry. I think it's Roxay Rathanam. I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly. From the Gerard Terrace. From Gerard Terrace. Okay, seeing none, I'll just go down to Noel Barber. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Noel Barber. I work for the Harrison Neighborhood Association as an environmental justice and climate justice organizer. And you've already heard several residents express concerns about rents that they can afford, 30% affordable housing guaranteed for development on Olson Memorial Highway, walkable neighborhoods, safe neighborhood. And I want to talk a little bit about our ability, which is not guaranteed, to drink clean water and breathe clean enough air in our community. And we know today more than ever that that's not something we can take for granted at all. And the promise of the train is to reduce carbon emissions, to reduce traffic, to reduce our part in accelerating climate change. So let's see a one-to-one replacement of trees that are removed because of the construction of the light rail, and added variety of trees. Variety would guarantee, or at least prevent, any one disease from wiping out that investment. And then a one-to-one replacement of trees would also inhibit the movement of urban runoff into our watershed, Bassett Creek and the Mississippi River watershed, both of which Harrison neighborhood falls into. So let's also listen to Harrison Heritage Park and Near North call for safer intersections, at least double crossing time. That 30 seconds is not enough for folks to make it even halfway across. So many of the children in the neighborhood of Harrison have to leave the neighborhood for schooling, and we owe it to our future to have safe passage to and from school. And I think that's all I'd like to say, but I'm very happy to see everyone here and speaking their truths. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for your testimony. Moving down, we have Chamkin Saudale, Redeemer Lutheran Church. Oh, just did. Okay, thank you. Moving down, Thomas Seiberg. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Chair and Council members. I'm Thomas Seberg. I am a Harrison resident, live in the Harrison neighborhood, live at 1814 Glenwood Avenue, apartment 204. Today I'm wearing two hats, one as a resident of the Harrison neighborhood and one as speaking on behalf of Redeemer Lutheran Church, of which I am on staff. The latter, okay, on the previous, I stand in support of everything the residents of Harrison and my neighbors and the association have said. It's valid, it is important, and I can't reiterate that enough. On the latter, by this coming Friday, Redeemer Lutheran Church will have filed against MnDOT a complaint on their discriminatory practices being out of compliance with the federal Title VI non-discrimination program. With regards to this very same 1.5 miles of Olson Memorial that the Blue Line extension is being further developed upon, the neighborhood just wants to see the same benefits afforded it as is seen in other MnDOT roads and projects across the state. The issues continue to be the length of time it takes to cross this community barrier, the yearly neglected maintenance and safety of sidewalks, of snow and ice-covered curb cutouts, and ADA concern, the vehicular accidents and pedestrian and bike safety and fatalities within this too fast and much too dense traffic corridor. The road is near impassable with the development, and it's near impassable. And with the development of the Blue Line extension, it will be impassable to the community, being an absolute dividing barrier to the community. I ask that the Transportation Committee, the council, and the city work with Redeemer Lutheran Church and the residents of Harrison and of near North and the North Side to hold MnDOT accountable for their direct discrimination, to ensure MnDOT puts the financial resources into this project and highway that is continues to neglect doing. With this project, let's make sure this discrimination ends. There is an elementary school, there is a library and community center all along Olson Memorial directly, let alone just a few blocks away. So as project office, as the head of the project office, Dan Solar had said, there is greater than 30,000 vehicles that drive along Olson Memorial, whereas MnDOT is putting millions of dollars into the St. Croix River crossing with a projected daily vehicular travel of 20,000 cars. So as Olson is the main reliever for 394, let's make sure that MnDOT, I'm asking the city to help make sure and hold accountable MnDOT in them refusing to continue to put financial investment in Olson Memorial. And I know that this project can and should be receiving the Federal Highway Authority money through MnDOT, in addition to Federal Transit Authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Moving down, we have someone listed as Queen. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, council members and chair. My name is Queen. I am at 1041 James Avenue North. I am here in support of these neighborhood, Harrison's neighborhood, Jordan's neighborhood, but also I'm also with One Family, One Community, and we are just in support of what Harrison has proposed here for the Blue Line. We would also like to see, as stated earlier, with the new housing development, that there should be a minimum of 30% of the units as affordable housing options, with the number of units and rents reflecting what the neighborhood and the demographics at the current area medium income. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ayan Isse.
Good morning, the councilor and chairs. My name is Ayan Isse. I am a Harrison neighborhood associate, living in Park Plaza for 10 years. My concern today is I represent the Somali community, Women Child Safe Center, the organization. The safety number one, the Park Plaza, they don't have the camera in outside for this, because we've seen many times they steal the cars, and we need to have a safety camera. Also, they don't have a car mobility we have elder people living there, and they need the grocery shopping, and there is no grocery in around to the area. The closest one is the Broadway and Lindell, which is a cat food. Everybody goes to the South Minneapolis to look for grocery shopping. So we will look for safety about the business. And we have a mosque also. We want it to be perceived like a similar the opportunity they have the neighborhoods. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. I will now go to Sean Pierce. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair and council members. I am Sean B.T. Pierce. I'm the Executive Director at the Harrison Neighborhood Association. You've heard pretty much everything from our residents today. I want to review a little bit of our engagement and some of the key points as we move forward. First, thank you to Jim Vole and Sophia Guinness. They've been with us for a very long time. And Commissioner Higgins, who is not here today that I see, but for the last 3 or so years has really been sitting with Harrison residents, even when we were discussing a pedestrian overpass over Trunk Highway 55. Just a bit of our work, we were a part of the community working group in the station area process, the health equity and engagement cohort. We have membership on the CAC, the BAC, and we were at the TAC meetings. So this is not a new level of engagement for us. I want to be clear about that. I also serve on the Corridor Management Committee, and we were happy to have representation on the Met Council's Equity Advisory Selection Committee. So very well engaged. We make sure that residents know what's happening, and our board members are here to show you all that we are not speaking as sole staff, but we really represent the voices of our neighborhood. In addition to what residents have raised, I want to just make a note that in addition to the door knocking we've done, we've hosted over 45 meetings in the last year and a half about this particular line, as well as Southwest. An additional 20 rounds of door knocking. We've kept the West Market Business District up to date before they were even started and officially recognized, and encouraged their participation at the table on Blue Line and Southwest LRTs, because we also understand it is essential that our businesses have a voice at the table. So when you've heard residents and staff reference this investment in the current housing and business stock, we want to really lift that up. If you look at some of the work that Robbinsdale is doing, they're acknowledging that when we build new structures, we actually start to price our people out, right? Because some of these properties are already owned, and then you add in taxes and mortgages, and now we go from looking at maybe $800 or $900 to lease these if you're a small business to potentially $2,000 a month just to cover what the property owner has incurred in order to own property. So we want to make sure that when we talk about displacement, we're also talking about making sure that the people who have been invested in these communities as our business owners, as our residents, both renters and homeowners, and as our faith-based communities continue to be in our neighborhoods. We ask that the council support the project, but we also ask that you really press that there is an increase in the crossing time, at least double. People get stuck out there all of the time, and to give you an idea of what happens, there was construction on Olsen at some point, and in a 1-minute time span, I sat on Glenwood and I counted 56 cars. And that was a small bit of construction. So imagine what happens when we start tearing up these lanes. We need infrastructural investment on Glenwood, and we need those increased crossing times. We also want to make sure that we're clear. This is not a commuter rail. When we say that, we mean this is not for the 9 to 5 people, but really acknowledging that this is about connecting our communities all the way up to the Brooklyns, and then making sure people can get out to some of our largest employment hubs out in Southwest. So that north and south piece is huge. And the piece about us not being an extension of downtown is that Harrison is the only environmental justice community that's impacted by all 3 of the lines. So please keep that in mind, and really encourage the project office and our partners to increase the access and the infrastructural investments to the community. Cool. And we always take questions, and we welcome you to our community engagement efforts.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that testimony and commentary. I will now go to call Apostle Anitha. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Anitha? Yes.
Good afternoon, Chair and council members. Thank you. That's Apostle Anatha. Okay, just looking at and listening to everyone speaking here. I'm a pastor, 500 Newton Avenue North for the Lee Church International Ministries. And we're just speaking on behalf of generally what everyone else has already said. We're here in support of community. So as the elderly spoke about the winter months and the cold and being able to have those barriers for them, they spoke about the trees and the pollution, the 5-story buildings, limitations, the businesses and their help, the housing and affordable housing, 30% for jobs. They spoke about that, the green space, the garden importance, the clean air for the trees, and in that respect, safer intersections, the discrimination situation, that filing, the safety for the cars and the stealing, that situation, and then the financial cost for businesses and renters. All of that you all have to look at and negotiate and figure out how you're going to really, work with the community and help each one in their respected ideas and concerns. And so here as a church, we are here to support the community through our standing with the community and working to see that these things are met as most possible, in the most possible way. Also that we really be concerned about the demographics of the area being mainly with 65% African Americans and creating more jobs through this construction. Normally, when I go past construction sites, I very seldom see African Americans on these construction sites. So with this major construction and light rail, we also want to see more African Americans employed through this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. That's the last person on the list that I have. Any subsequent sign-ins? Seeing none, are there anyone who wishes to come forward, make commentary, and wish to come forward? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion of this. And council members, any questions or commentary? Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along with you and Councilmember Glidden, I have the opportunity to be on the rail policy group. So those of us there were able to see some of the more detailed development of this project. But I wondered if we might be able to have CPED staff just very briefly talk with us about the other consequence of this decision about the lane widths and number of lanes, which is the redevelopment potential along the corridor. And our staff did a significant amount of work and analysis. And I think that's just an important part of this conversation. Again, we have a proposal in front of us. Today is the day we vote on municipal consent, and it's not likely to change the outcome, but I do think it's important that the community members that took the time to come and those in the broader community know about some of these other trade-offs as well. So I think we have Mr. Byers and Mr. Vole here who both were really involved in that. And again, I think it could be very brief. That's okay.
Well, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Byers.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and council members. My name is Jack Byers, Manager of Long Range Planning and CPED. And to your question, Councilmember Bender, we have done a lot of work and analysis on this, particularly in relation to the station area planning, which is going on cooperatively with the engineering part of the project. As you know, Minneapolis has been this is the fourth light rail line that Minneapolis has been part of. So these are significant investments in the city, significant investments in the region. And the vision has always been that transit-oriented development would happen at our stations and that the stations would be a place of mixed-use development that would allow for connectivity between the neighborhoods and the region vis-a-vis the rail stations. I don't have to tell you that this has been a bit of a challenge to realize on some of the other lines. The Hiawatha line was built quickly, and the redevelopment on the western side of the Hiawatha line had happened in the decade previous to the construction of that line. On the eastern side, there's a lot of industrial and rail uses that made it much more difficult, have made it much more difficult to redevelop. Likewise, on the southwest, there are varying conditions between industrial and polluted lands, and then lakes and parks as well. On Central Corridor, there's been better opportunities for redevelopment, and that's because the line has been built in a narrower public realm that has been designed to really connect neighborhoods on either side of the line rather than the line being a barrier. So these are the kinds of things that CPED began to look at with Metro Transit, with MnDOT, and with Hennepin County as the project was in design. The chief opportunity on this line that we did not have with all of the others is that there's a great deal of land available here for redevelopment, which means that there are a number of developer opportunities at both the Van Wyck and the Penn stations. More importantly, the majority of that land is in public ownership. And that means that that land is easier to package for the public sector to bring to bear for the private sector to create new development. And so the potential here is much greater than any of the other 3 lines that have been built in Minneapolis for those transit stations to become the center of new neighborhood commercial nodes. So when we think about the commercial nodes around the city, Lake and Hennepin, in Dinkytown, Central and Lowry, all of those transit nodes have businesses around them. Very few of our LRT stations have commercial businesses around them. So there's a real opportunity here to do that. And the relationship, we know that the relationship of the platform to surrounding retail is critical. And that is because every transit rider, before and after they get off of the train, they are a pedestrian. And retail owners need pedestrians to come to their businesses. And so retail, we know that retail would need someone to be able to see their business and walk easily to it from a station platform. And so the environment for pedestrians really became our critical challenge to address in the station area planning. And so we have been able to accomplish some things that I think are important things we didn't know we could accomplish at the beginning, and I want to congratulate the project office for being cooperative and collaborative with us. We do have 1 signal pedestrian crossings for the entire width of all of the intersections. That means that if you get the green light on the south side, you can cross not only to the station, but to the north side in 1 signal. You don't have to wait for 2 signals. In addition, we got some crossings that are not at streets that would cross through the rail line. And so in those cases, PEDS will have a way to activate a light. It won't be a flashing light. It will be a red light and a subsequent green light that allows pedestrians to cross through. And also, we did not get bridges across the corridor. We have at-grade pedestrian crossings, which is really critical for public safety. The challenge is, I think we can be very optimistic that we will see development, particularly on the south side. And I should say that the project office also nudged the entire alignment of the roadway north so that the city, along with MnDOT and Minneapolis Public Housing, could take advantage of larger development parcels on the south side. The opportunity that we see perhaps lost is that with 6 lanes of traffic instead of 4, the environment may be less hospitable to pedestrians than if there were 4 lanes of traffic. And that may cause developers to develop less intensity. Less intensity means fewer units. And so in some measure, there's an opportunity lost there in terms of the number of possible housing units. That also makes it difficult to get mixed income housing units in a development project, which would make it harder to address some of the community's concerns that there would not be entirely affordable housing. And I think perhaps the most important thing is that with a better pedestrian environment, there is a better opportunity that developers will include retail in these projects. And retail is something that is sorely needed in this part of Minneapolis. I don't have to tell you that we've heard many times through many public meetings, folks in this neighborhood saying that they have very few choices to get anything in their neighborhood by foot. They either have to go downtown, further north, or else just leave the city entirely. So we were thinking that really these station areas are the opportunity to create some retail for the existing neighborhoods as well as any new projects that would be built there as well. And that's kind of the difference between 6 lanes and 4 lanes is that we don't think we'll be able to get the same intensity of development with 6 lanes. Does that help?
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Yang.
Mr. Chair, I didn't really have prepared remarks on this, but with regards to this talk about the lane reductions, myself and other council members have been in intensive talks throughout this process, and I can tell you that at the end of the day, I mean, the final word on that was from the state of Minnesota Department of Transportation saying that that just wasn't going to happen, and so we have to work within those confines. But as Mr. Byer said, I mean, I'm looking forward to, the developments that can happen there because, he described it pretty well with regards to the Harrison neighborhood and just the challenges related to commercial retail that needs to happen there for it to become, this vibrant, self-sustaining and self-supporting neighborhood. With Southwest LRT on the south end and, Botno on the north end, it's going to be surrounded by light rail, but hopefully the development comes with it just to make it, that much better as a neighborhood. I truly appreciate Sean Pierce and the folks at HNA for just, being so engaged in this process and, holding folks accountable and also pushing the agenda of the Harrison neighborhood to, improve the neighborhood to the extent in which this can be a great win for everyone, with regards to the 2 light rail lines that are going to go through there. So, with all that stuff being said, I mean, my sense is that the good folks in North Minneapolis really do want to see this line go through and that they want to see all the pluses or all the advantages that come with light rail come through, not only for the Harrison neighborhood, but for the neighborhood north of there as well. And I mean, my only regret is that this line didn't cut through more of North Minneapolis so that more of North Minneapolis would benefit from it, especially, let's just be honest, I mean, especially the folks up in Ward 4 even who are, further away from it. But, even the good folks in the Jordan neighborhood and also the Hawthorne neighborhood, it doesn't touch upon those neighborhoods as well as I would have liked. But, such is life.
Thank you. Any further conversation? Councilor Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if anyone has moved the item. I'm happy to move approval of the item, but then do have a brief comment.
Oh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I mean, as Councilmember Yang said, I think this is such an important project and a good investment for our city. And I'm grateful for all the work that our staff has put into this and the council members in this area. I do think that this project is not realizing its full potential for the city of Minneapolis. And that's because we're still planning these huge transportation investments for too short a time window. We're looking at now, we're looking at 10 years in the future. Our traffic models assume that people will continue to drive at their current rates. And we know that if we design our transportation system to make it easy and inexpensive to drive, they will. It's called induced demand. And we're creating a transportation system that if we were really looking out 50 years and acknowledging all of the consequences of designing our road system for people to be able to drive quickly through our neighborhoods, long distances, the consequences for our climate, the consequences for our health, the consequences of urban sprawl to our region's economy, the negative impacts on city neighborhoods that see that daily traffic flow, the air pollution that our children are breathing. All of these things matter when we're making these big decisions. And so I'm disappointed that MnDOT was unable to support more lane reduction. It's giving us missed potential for redevelopment. It's lessening our city's tax base in the future. We're building for the status quo, not for a future that really prioritizes transit, biking, and walking, and not for a future that prioritizes the kids in our city neighborhoods over people driving long distances. And so I really, again, I'm supportive of this project. I'm glad that we've been able to come together to get to this point. But I wish that when we were making these very large infrastructure investments, again, we were looking out to that 50-year future and planning for those kids in our neighborhoods that we really need to change the status quo so that they don't continue to see the consequences of our decisions.
Thank you. The item has been moved. Do we have any further comments? Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. And I just want to be able to complain a little bit about some of the same issues. Interesting, while we were up here, somebody sent us an image from Apple Valley of what it looks like to have transit down the middle of a 7-lane road, and it totally looks like a suburban concept. It totally looks like something that doesn't belong in a dense city. It totally looks like something that's never going to get us the commercial node that we want, that we're talking about. If you have this massive number of lanes. And we talked about 6, and maybe 6 is tolerable, but when you look at all the intersections, it becomes 7. And for some reason, we need dedicated left turn lanes everywhere and 2 through lanes going. And it's not where we need to go or where we should be going. And I guess I understand that its Department of Transportation didn't want to see that happen and was concerned about it. I got to hear a lot of these concerns about University Avenue when we were putting the green line down there and what's going to happen and what are we going to do and what's it going to mean to the city and nothing's ever going to work again. And now even when you're driving on it, it seems like things are moving smoothly and it's fine. And there was a reduction in lanes. We've seen it on many other roads where we decide to do that too. And it works out fine. People go on their little road diet and they figure out what to do. And maybe we need more of a massive effort to do that. So I would like to push back on that. I also had high hopes that we might come up with some way to do some kind of grade separation so the pedestrians could be much more creative. And if you look down, we didn't hear the full presentation or see it, but if you look down further, there's apparently money to create new bridges to go over railroad tracks here and to get something over a freeway down there when the line's going on further. But when it's coming through Minneapolis and when we're worried about the Harrison neighborhood and we want to make better connections across there, it seems like it's got to all be at grade and we're not doing anything. Somebody did mention a pedestrian overpass, and wouldn't that be wonderful? Sometimes those are tricky because people don't want to use those and it's more time consuming to go up and over, but at least it might have been a gesture. Or even just down a little for the train or the road and up. If we're reconstructing the whole road, I don't know how much more it would cost, but probably something like that is a lot cheaper than having to build a new bridge for the trains over a freeway down the road there later. So it's just frustrating. It's a bit of a missed opportunity. I love the idea about a tree 1-for-1 replacement, and hopefully we can do that. Maybe we can find some money along the way and some pressure along the way, or maybe if we keep talking about this, nothing's been built yet. It's okay to dream and be hopeful and optimistic. Maybe we'll see a lane disappear down there somewhere before it actually gets put in. So hopefully, if more people can talk about that and bring that up, I think it's great that we're building out our system, and we need to. And I've often wished we could put conditions on our consent, and I've often been told by our attorneys and others, you don't get to do that. So I guess I can't do that, but at least I can voice my concerns and my issues here, and they can maybe be carried back, and we can look at that as we move further into design. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further commentary? I think a fair amount has been shared both by way of testimony from the community and comments from my colleagues. I know some of those comments fall within our range. The certain design approval that we have before us, subsequent design that is to follow, and even areas that are probably even outside of the project scope but are directly related to it. I think we want to make sure that these comments are heard and remain instructive throughout the whole process. I really want to thank the people who have came forward from the community. Really amounted to a very thoughtful array of considerations, and I think because it was so well thought out, I think it will be instructive. I think it will be impactful in terms of how we move forward with design. It's not built yet, as Councilmember Gordon has pointed out, and we do not take these conversations gratuitously. They are important. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for my comments from my colleagues and the attention by staff that's been put forward to this, and will continue to do so. And I should note it's been a multi-department effort, and I think it'll benefit from that immediate attention, and hopefully that attention carries through. Because we do want to make sure that this is a multi-benefit investment, given the dollars that are included and not looked upon solely as a siloed transit infrastructure. With that, I will move. It's been moved. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Dissenting name. And we have passed a resolution of approval for this level of design per the municipal consent process. Thank you. I will note before we were joined by Council President Johnson, who had been, along with Councilmember Yang, tracking this issue quite closely. And furthermore, we were also joined by Assistant Director Lisa Cerny. Welcome. So we'll move down our agenda. We have one more public hearing, and it's the car sharing program ordinance.
Mr. Chair, John Wirtis, Director of Transportation and Parking Services, will make the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. John Orchis, Director of Traffic and Parking Services. Today we have a public hearing and ordinance adoption related to the car sharing program that we're proposing on street. And I should reiterate, Mr. Chair, what you said earlier. This is one of two parts on today's agenda. There's this item 5, which is the ordinance adoption efforts, and then item 13, which is about the policy. So I'll be speaking to the ordinance to start out, but then referring to a little bit about the policy so people understand the linkages between them.
Thank you.
So in front of you for the ordinance is basically a culmination of a lot of efforts over the past several years. I should note that not only has it been staff's involvement, but also the 3 vendors, Car2Go, Our Car, and Zipcar, have all been at the table with us, as we've learned through this pilot effort. And which has brought us here today with the ordinance and a policy that we believe can move us forward and have an ongoing program in the city. Relative to the ordinances themselves, there are basically 2 changes which we are proposing here and have introduced at our last meeting here in front of you. A brief recap of those ordinance changes. There are 2 parts to that. The first part is related to licensing. Specifically in Title 13, Chapter 259, where we have created a list. There's a list in there of licenses for folks, and so the car share operators will be now licensed in our system under this ordinance. And then second of all is the language that accompanies that licensing and the appropriate fee schedule that comes with that. Both of those are in Chapter 259. The second part of the ordinance language has to do with the permitting and the policy element. Basically, in Title 18, Chapter 478, in the parking, stopping, and standing section, we introduced the parameters around the policy itself and how we would move forward to use that in the future. Just a brief recap on what's in the policy. I won't get into the particulars, but there's administrative efforts, there's licensing and permitting provisions, there's provisions for a program advisory committee to be established, requirements and the processes for parking on the street are in there, as well as annual reporting, as well as criteria and operational models, and then our rate structure relative to the car sharing. And then flexibility, hopefully in the future. We sure don't expect that we've caught everything today, but we will proceed forward with that. So with that, Mr. Chair and committee members, I'll keep it brief in that sense and be open to comments or questions that come up during the public hearing.
Thank you. Any questions per the presentation? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. We do have someone signed in. We'll begin with Brian Harvey. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Brian Harvey, and I am the Zipcar Market Manager in Minneapolis. Our office is at 733 Marquette Avenue South. Thank you, Chair Reich and members of the committee, for allowing me to go over a few prepared comments here today. Zipcar is the world's largest car-sharing network with operations in over 500 cities and towns in 8 countries around the world. We were founded 16 years ago, a time when car sharing seemed crazy, with a clear social mission to enable simple and responsible urban living. And that mission is strengthened by our partnerships with the cities where we operate, including here in Minneapolis, where we launched in 2013 and today operate a fleet of over 30 vehicles shared by a growing local membership base and more than 950,000 members globally. Zipcar's model of car sharing, the round trip or station-based sharing, has proven to have substantially positive impacts on society. Each vehicle we put on the road displaces between 9 and 13 personally owned vehicles. 50% of car sharing members either sell or defer purchase of a vehicle after joining our service. Our members walk, bike, and use public transportation more, and each member, because they drive less overall, reduces their personal carbon emissions by up to 1,600 pounds per year. Each of our vehicles supports the needs of around 50 members, far more than a personally owned vehicle, which on average sits idle 95% of the day. With substantial proven benefits, it's logical that the city would want to choose to support car sharing by offering access to curbside parking. These public parking partnerships are not a business requirement for our model to be successful, but these highly visible locations can accelerate our growth and consequently our positive impact on the city. As the city considers extending and modifying this policy, I hope to offer 2 lessons we've learned in other cities that might inform your discussion. First, on pricing, we found that the most successful car sharing programs, those that help cities meet policy goals, are those with competitive pricing for on-street parking spaces that are at or below market rate compared to off-street parking locations. As currently structured, the city's pricing proposal for dedicated parking in metered locations is well above market rate, thereby discouraging operators from choosing on-street locations. It's unlikely that operators like ours would choose city-sponsored spaces should they remain more costly than off-street spaces. Second, we found that soliciting permission from abutting and adjacent property owners when placing vehicles to be a logistical barrier to growth. We're proud of the community's support for services like ours and have countless member stories and quantitative data that speaks to our impact. Their voices are too often crowded out by the interests of property owners. We have found great success when city leaders and policymakers take an affirmative stance that car sharing is a social good and members deserve the same access to curb space granted to personal vehicle owners. While we're happy to earn support from our neighbors, we hope the city will partner more closely with us and look differently at these requirements. We'd love to continue to grow our service in Minneapolis in partnership with the city, and we would welcome further discussion on these items. Zipcar, we're big fans of any idea that makes more efficient use of our roadways and vehicles and makes cities better places to live. We know the city of Minneapolis shares these goals, and we look forward to continuing to work together to make Minneapolis a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else sign in? No one signed in. Anyone wish to come forward and speak on this matter? Anyone wish to come forward? See none, I will close the public hearing, and perhaps staff could make a comment on the marketability question or the market value question.
Mr. Chair and council members, Mr. Harvey raised 2 items. One was the pricing and one was the adjacent property owner requirements that are in. On the first item, relative to pricing, it's specifically about metered parking and pricing of that. In some circumstances, the pricing on the street compared to the adjacent off-street parking is lower, and in some cases it's higher. So it may vary in location by location. And so generally, depending upon where you are in the city, that can vary. And so we'll be interested in hearing what Mr. Harvey and others have relative to that. We are aware that he is operating primarily an off-street model right now, but as we have laid out in the policy document, we've also kind of created this advisory committee, which I think will be a perfect venue to talk about these and other issues, not only the pricing, but also the property adjacent review and approval by them. So.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any further questions? Seeing none, I know we had very good conversation and vetting in our previous committee as noted on the subject matter. So I will move the item before us as described. And then just to highlight that one aspect of it is amending the license fee schedule to add car sharing operators license fee, and that will be referred to the CDRS committee. With that, all in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting name. That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for your commentary. That concludes all our public hearings. We now have our 2 remaining items, and we'll go to item 12 in the discussion section, and that is to discuss the analysis that led to a recommendation for a contract with Eureka Recycling for processing and marketing commingled recyclables as described, and this will be referred to Ways and Means. Assistant Director Cerny.
David Herberholz with the Division of Solid Waste and Recycling will present.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Dave Herberholz, and I'm the Director of Solid Waste and Recycling for the city. Very pleased to be here to provide this brief presentation on the processing and marketing RFP for commingled recyclables from our residential collection program. First of all, I'd just like to provide some brief background on why we conducted this RFP. We are currently in the first year extension of an agreement with our current vendor, Waste Management. This is actually the fourth year of service with them. So, and we intentionally issued this RFP in advance of contract expiration and increased the length of the term of the contract to attract potential proposers that may need a longer period of time to provide us with the city with a better price. A little background on the timeline. This was a lengthy process, and we really went with a very professional and technical approach that began back with the release of the RFP on September 28th of last year, 2015. We conducted a pre-proposal conference on October 21st, 2015 that was attended by 5 interested vendors. Around that time, we solicited Burns & McDonnell, the solid waste consultant, to assist us with the RFP process. We were very pleased to receive 2 submittals, 2 proposals on December 4th, 2015, one from our current vendor, Waste Management, and one from Eureka Recycling. In addition, an evaluation panel comprised of staff from the City of Minneapolis, Department of Public Works, and Department of Finance, the Burns & McDonnell consulting firm in Hennepin County, was assembled to score the submittals based on criteria that was outlined in the RFP document. Waste Management and Eureka Recycling submitted competitive proposals as evidenced by the evaluation panel's scoring, and both exhibited high professionalism during the entire selection process, which included a post-proposal interview and facility tours. Both proposers have time-tested, successful recycling, processing, and marketing operations with established facilities in the city, and they've been operating here for more than a decade. Each facility has the ability to properly process our Minneapolis residential recycling volumes, and the access and distance to each facility for our city and contractor collection crews was principally equal. The final basis for selection involved a financial analysis of cost and services, which was part of the criteria that focused on the following key distinguishing factors. Number one, Eureka Recycling offered a lower per ton processing fee. Number two, both companies proposed an 80-20 revenue sharing package, but Eureka was the only proposer to offer and agree to use third-party indices for the purposes of determining commodity values used in calculating the revenues to be shared. In addition, Eureka proposed to waive their portion of the recycling revenue if, for some instance, the total market value of each ton of material was less than what the city's per ton processing fee was. A little overview of where we're at with recycling, I guess, market-wide. Current recycling materials markets are depressed, and they offer limited revenues. And unfortunately, there's not really a good forecast for improvement this year. So therefore, securing an agreement with the lowest proposed processing fee limits the city's risk during the term of this agreement. And after careful consideration, Eureka Recycling has been selected as our preferred proposer. And this recommendation and contract award is based on the technical merits of their proposal. We are requesting the committee action authorizing proper city officials to negotiate and execute a contract with Eureka's Recycling for the processing and marketing of commingled recyclables for a period of 5 years for 100% of the city's residential recycling volume. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been looking at the RCA, and then I wasn't clear about the contract amounts. Do we have that at this point, or is that going to be under negotiations?
Help me with that one more time.
The contract amounts for the 5 years.
Okay. The valuation of an annual year is approximately $1.3 million. However, the net impact, we've never had to pay. We've usually received recycling revenue. So as far as the net impact, it's some money coming back to the city.
Okay, and with regards to that, we're both companies that competed, I mean, pretty similar or equal in terms of what they were, I guess, charging us year to year, or was there a significant difference?
Eureka was low as far as their per ton processing fee. They came in at $49 a ton as opposed to Waste Management at $53 a ton. So over the course of the 5-year contract, it equates to about a savings of $250,000.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, one more question. Look, if we move to Eureka, does that mean we still have one sort for single sorts? Is that still going to continue, or are we changing the way we do that?
Chair, Councilmember Yang, yes, one sort. There'll be basically no change in our current program.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, we do handle contracts all the time, though because this one is a large contract and because it does touch many of our city goals, in addition to the core service, we wanted to make this discussion item, however brief. I want to thank the staff, particularly your leadership director, to put together the team that did such a, I think, thorough and unequivocal, quantifiably based analysis to get to this conclusion and recommendation. And I think the city was well served by that process. And with that, I'm happy to move this item. Any further discussion? Councilmember Yang.
Mr. Chair, just a minor thing, with regards to this specific contract, I was amazed at the number of emails that we received from folks supporting Eureka on this. And, I don't know if this is going to be a precedent in the future with regards to people competing on contracts and having just a built-in constituency or a built-in support group that just continuously sends emails. But if that's kind of built into the system, it would be nice just to let folks who are competing for contracts know that, just so that they can just flood us with emails. I mean, not saying it was, a bad thing. I'm just saying that, that was kind of something that I noticed, and just that it was interesting to see that. And, I'll leave it at that.
Well, in response to that, I think more than anything else, that is one more reason to underscore the process that was laid out, where we have a very exclusive and technical vetting by technical people, including our jurisdictional partners, such as Hennepin County, as step one, which is not influenced one way or another by, people's ability to say their opinions or lobby or exercise their, freedom of speech. So I think that's one of the things where I really did want to highlight. This was step one. Of course, we're not, as policymakers, we're aware of a whole range of other issues that we may associate with the core action, but the core action before us based on the merits presented. Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also received a really high number of communications about this that notably were really focused on things that may not have been within what staff reviewed, because again, there the review was mostly based on these criteria about providing the service in a way that was financially advantageous for the city, and we knew that we were going to get the service that our constituents need. But, I think the discussion was timely that we had at COW regarding our procurement standards and the work that Councilmember Glidden and others are leading with the coordinator's office, because the things that my constituents were talking about had to do with the company's policies in their workplace and the benefits that they give to their employees, the fact that it was a locally owned company. And those are things that aren't reflected now in our procurement scoring, as I understand it, but maybe should be in the future. So I'm glad that we are having that policy discussion about how we look at RFPs, because obviously it is a high priority for my constituents based on the number of communications I got about those specific elements of the decision we're making.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Understand that this process was purposeful. The intent of it was to, with us knowing and understanding the political environment, the community involvement, some of the advocacy of one of the firms is that we stuck to our RFP criteria and the technical merits of the proposal. And we feel very confident that the process was done in the right way and that we have a very qualified vendor to move forward with. And we have a luxury here in Minneapolis is that we have 3 very large major recycling centers in our city, and that's really unheard of. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you as well. So we have a motion before us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Dissenting nay. That carries as presented. Thank you. And then the last item is just really a placeholder for any further questions if desired regarding car sharing policy. Seeing none, I will move that item. All in favor say aye. Dissenting nay, and that carries as well. We are now concluded with our agenda and thereby adjourned. Thank you.